Hey, it's Tuesday night, Total Schmidt Show. We are streaming. Let's do this. Hey, welcome to the Total Schmidt Show. Whether you're watching on the Lenny Schmidt Comedy Network on YouTube or you're listening on podcasts, we have a new intro, new theme song. Let's do this. Hey, tune in every week as I travel the world and I talk to entertainers from all over the world. A lot of writers, a lot of comics, a lot of dancers, a lot of singers, a lot of comics, a lot of producers, a lot of tech people, a lot of comics, a lot of pianists, piano player type people. You know what I'm talking about. Musicians and lots of comics. Every once in a while, we'll throw in a comedy sketch, something like that, some music, some travel stuff. We'll even do a live remote from one or two of the ports that happen to be hanging out at. That's it. That's the whole show. And I'm going to record it all and put it on the intraweb. Sometimes. Usually late. Always late. Maybe. I don't know. And weekly? No. Maybe. Sort of. Either way, sit back, grab a beer, light a joint, and enjoy this week's episode of Hey man, thanks for tuning in to Total Schmidt Show. It's Tuesday, 6 o'clock. Look, I'm in a hotel, figures, because I'm always somewhere. Today's episode, we're going to get right to it pretty quick, but do me a favor first. You know the drill. Look below me, hit the thumbs up button before you watch this video and realize you don't like it. Subscribe to the channel, please. Helps me a lot. I could use subscribers. Cost you nothing to do that, but helps me immensely. Also, look around me. You'll see social media information where you can follow me. I am Mr. Lenny Schmidt on all social media platforms. This is our 64 or 5 episode. I can't remember right now. I'll have to look after I do this recording. But this is Rob Rasner. I recorded this on the Encore. Encore? Yes. No, the Bliss. The Norwegian Bliss. We were together with him, Lisa Cash, and a few other people. Quincy Carr. That's the cruise that we were on with those guys. Rob Rasner is a magician and an actor and a comic. He actually came from comedy and acting and went into magic. And I got to see his show a couple times on the cruise ship. With great stories about him working with Jim Carrey and a lot of the stuff that he had done, TV stuff. Rob's been around a while, man. He lived in the LA area where I lived, and he's a great guy. We had a lot of fun talking about this. We need to do another one. Had some sound issues, and we had to edit some of it out. But I saved some of it. So this is about a little over 45 minutes. Rob Rasner, conversation with me and him sitting in a cruise ship cabin, as usual, on the Norwegian Bliss, somewhere in the middle of the ocean, around Alaska-ish. Sit back and enjoy my conversation with my good friend, Rob Rasner. No, but it's good, dude. You come out with. I love the opening of the show. It's great. I would have stayed, but I left to see Quincy's show, and it was, dude. You got laughs immediately. I always judge a comedian or a magician that does comedy because some of them are forcing comedy into it.
Oh, I wish you would have seen. Well, I'll get into it in the interview, but I took a lot of. Are we interviewing now? No.
Yeah, I just start. Oh. Yeah, I'll just cut when I had you clap. I'll sync it, and then I'll just start when I.
We'll talk about that. Anyway, I'll say this before we get into the interview, technically. But I do a bit in there where I wish you would have seen where I say, let me turn this off, where I say, now, I hope you guys, I learned a new skill for my show. This is what I wanted you to see. I learned a new skill for my show during quarantine. Did anyone learn a new skill? People raise their hand and go, I learned a new skill for my show. Keep in mind, I learned it during quarantine. I want to see if you guys can see me. I think I'm getting pretty good at it. Tell me what you think. I bring out a ventriloquist doll and say, I want to tell me if you can see me moving my lips. And I put a COVID mask on.
Oh, nice.
Fucking kills. Yeah.
Oh, right on. That's good. Yeah, that's a big laugh. See? COVID gave you a joke.
Yeah. Hopefully it will be I mean, I don't know how long I can do the joke, but it's funny now.
Yeah. Well, I had a whole bunch of COVID material I was doing. Already it's old for people. You know what I mean? There's certain things people just don't want to be reminded of.
Right.
The whole COVID thing. Dude, so let's start, dude. I saw the show. How long have you been doing? How long have you been doing this, man?
I've been doing magic. Most people start as magicians when they're children, like 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
I started from scratch. At my very first magic trick I learned at the age of 25.
Wow.
Believe it or not, I learned at 25, and I've been doing it full time now for let's see, 22 years.
Yeah.
22 years, yeah. Made it full-time 22 years. It started with, born and raised in Los Angeles, lived there my entire life, and I worked a lot in the industry, and had some good successes. Worked a lot commercially, and guest starred on various television shows, and small parts in big features. I had a small role in The Cable Guy with Jim Carrey. My role actually ended up on the cutting room floor, but I still get...
Yeah, you still get the cash, brother.
I still get the cash.
Yeah.
Like a couple $100 a year.
Dude, I had a couple of those myself where you're like, I'm not in it, but they got to pay you, bro.
Dude, yeah, I still make $200 a year all these years later. So anyway, yeah, it started with that. I started working a lot, doing a lot of commercials and whatnot, and then my ex at the time was telling me that I was driving her crazy because I was staying up all night playing video games and whatnot. She's like, I need you to do something. I'm like, look, I'm working. I got commercials right now. We have money. Like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
She said it's an attitude. It's a go-getter. You need to give some initiative. Do something. And so she kind of threw the Los Angeles Valley College, which is, as you know, a community college in LA, newspaper at me. She's like, this is in the late 90s, take a class in computers or something. I was flipping through there and it said, Magician Teaching Magic 101. I thought, oh, that would be fun. I could learn some tricks, maybe help me with my auditions.
Seriously?
Yep. So I started taking a class on Tuesday nights to get out of the house, and I started learning some good tricks, and I was getting real good at it. And it's just a hobby, and it was fun, and kind of gave me an identity. And then when the Screen Actors Guild hit a strike in 2001, 2000, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
A magician friend of mine said, "Hey, man, I'm doing this strolling close-up magic gig tomorrow at a corporate event, and I got double booked. Can you take over?" And I was like, "Nope, not doing that. I'm way too shy." He's like, "Rob, you're really funny."
You're way too shy.
Yeah, he's like, I'm way too, like, I'd be embarrassed. Like, it's all stage fright. I'm like, I'm afraid to mess up. He's like, "You're very good. You're funny. Trust me." I was like, "I really need you on this." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not doing it." Well, we're 5 months into the strike now.
Right.
And money was getting tight.
Yeah.
So he goes, "Here's how much it pays." And I was like, "Oh, well, you didn't say that." My answer
should have
was,
led with that.
I was like, "Yeah, lead with that." I'm like, "What do you wear?" So what do I wear? So I went and did the gig. And at that gig, I remember it was in October, and that gig, somebody said, "Hey, do you do children's parties?" And I said, "When is it?" And he said, "End of November." And they had a good budget. And I was like, "Yeah, I do." So I went to a colleague, and said, "Hey, can you teach me a kids show?"
Yeah.
And then one of those gigs, someone said, "Hey, do you do adult shows?" I said, "When is it?" It was like 2 months out. I said, "Yes, I do." And so I learned it, and then just progressed over the years. And so I still work as an actor here and there, but it was back then. I remember getting calls saying, "You were on hold for this national campaign of commercials.
Right.
You're the number one choice. The director's going to call you at 6 or 7:30.
Yeah.
Probably more than likely." And the phone ring, and I'd be like, it was back in the days of landlines. I'd pick up the phone and go, "Mom, don't call me right now." Click.
Yeah, right.
And so, and it was so frustrating, but now this way, and back then it was easy because I get to be this, have that performer mentality, the center of attention thing.
Yeah.
That's lived the financial lifestyle on a regular basis, and then when the acting stuff comes in, it's just merely a bonus.
Yeah, because now you get more control over
Correct.
What you're doing, and you're not desperately.
Right.
Yeah, I similarly. I've been doing stand-up 37 years, but I turned down the Sons of Anarchy gig to do my first ship, and the reason was at the time I had a quote. I was doing guest stars. I had recurring in a bunch of shows. I was working a lot. And it was during my divorce. It's a long story. I don't want to get into it. But the ship thing came up. And then at the time, Sons was pitching one episode. And my agent countered with, we wanted multiple. We wanted to top a show and a bunch of other stuff. And they balked. They said no. And I said, well, I got to take the ship gig then. So I took the ship gig. So they gave me 3 weeks. My first gig ever. And then Sons called back and gave me what I wanted. Nice. And my agent called me. Nice. And she goes, Sons, you get 5 episodes. And, and I already confirmed the ship gig, and I turned it down. I go, I can't. I just took the ship gig because I knew Because I'm sad. I'm in SAG. I got a pension. I'm like you, working actor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I worked for years, and I knew the You Got a gig, and it was great. And then maybe I worked with a lot of directors who are like, we'll bring you back, and then it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't turn into something else. But the ship gig, I felt like could be something in the long term. So I turned it down. I knew this. If I turned down the ship gig or canceled it, I wouldn't get another shot at the ship.
And that's the same thing with the industry too. Is like. For me, I'm 5'6", and so when I was younger, I booked all the high school roles because I'm.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm a younger. I'm sorry, I like to say this about myself.
Younger looking.
I'm a younger acting and younger looking older guy.
Right.
And so I was able to go through that, but then I went through an awkward stage of like, hey, he's too short, like almost like this weird Patton Oswalt thing where I'm like, too old for this, too young for that, and the magic literally saved me, and I still work here and there, but when it's just a bonus now.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many times where I was like, I don't want to count. The ships have just been, they've literally saved my life. And I was able to buy a house and all that.
No, I put my kids through college. I get it. It came for me at the perfect time because I was going through divorce. So it was not a good time, and money was already killing me with the lawyers and everything else. Yep. So it just kind of fell into place, and I work all the time. So
yeah, and the same. It's perfect for me too because I'm divorced, no children, no pets. I don't even have a plant.
That's really good. Yeah, that's good. You can do the minimalist thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Pretty much. Yeah. When you're traveling, but you got that cool house, and
I do have a cool house.
I do. I love that.
And I'm
booked. Beautiful.
I'm going to be booked until I'm 80, trying to pay that off. Like, literally, that house is one thing. I mean, it's always something popping up. I'm like, and you can't call the landlord, but it's a beautiful house. It's worth it.
It's really beautiful, man. Good for you. I mean, I'm really happy for you. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get a house anymore.
Well, you can, just not in LA.
There's no way in LA. I know that for sure. My kids were always joking about, because I stayed there for them. I got divorced. They moved to Chicago, and I almost left LA years ago. And they were like, "No, we want to come back to LA." So I told them I stayed there in LA. This is while I was doing ships. I would not be home for months at a time. But then they moved back in with me. They went to college, and I kind of stayed so they could start their lives. But I've been telling them recently, I'm like, I got 2 years tops before I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
I go, I'm leaving. And they're like, well, and I told them for years. They're like, why? I go, you know why? I go, I can't afford to live here, man. And I don't have to live there anymore.
I just read an article saying that Los Angeles, you are considered low income at $104,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's insane.
It's completely insane. Yeah. In order to be, I read an article, it cost, it was something like, I can't remember exactly what they were talking. In order to get out, just to get a home loan, you need to be making like $180,000 a year just to be eligible for the loan. And you're like, how the, okay, you know?
And the hard part is I was born and raised in Riverside. I've lived in the actual city in the Valley, Burbank, Studio City, Sherman Oaks for 30 years. And I went, this is my home. This is where I'm from. I bleed Dodger blue. This is my home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I can't. And then I saw how the homeless was coming into the Valley.
Yeah.
And I went, it just breaking my heart. And I'm like, I got to go. Now, I will say this. Now that I've moved to Georgia, it's beautiful. Everything is, it's a better quality of living, et cetera, but it's a little slow.
Yeah.
So the beautiful thing is I come back every 2 months because all my friends, all my haunts, everywhere I hang out, I'm always back in LA every couple months for at least a week.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so I was just there like 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to come back in December. And
well, it's convenient when you travel, too. You know what I mean? If you're traveling, you can live pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, and I just tell the ships, too, send me here instead. Send me to LA for a week.
Yeah, and you get off, you spend a week, and you fly out of there. And
exactly.
I do a similar thing with Chicago. You know what I mean? When I go see my family, I'll just go home to Chicago for a week instead of coming back to LA. And now that the kids are older, it's getting easier. You know, they're in their 20s now. They got, they're doing their own stuff.
And so you've also been divorced a long time?
For 15 years.
Yeah, I think mine is now, we're just going on, 18 now. So.
Were you, well, then you obviously started, when did you start doing ships?
I didn't start doing ships till 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're like 4 or 5 years in then. All right.
Not even.
Good for you. First of all, dude, I always say this. Like, as a comic, I get it. I build, I do my show. But to be a guest entertainer on a ship, that's one of the reasons I do this podcast. I'm always mesmerized by you guys. It's such a hard thing to do, to build and act 2 different shows and then go on and do multiple lines and perform over and over again. I don't think people understand how difficult and what an achievement it is to be able to become a guest entertainer.
Well, the main thing that people don't understand, and a lot of other entertainers will ask me this, is it's really hard to get booked.
Yeah.
Once you get booked, it's hard to get rebooked, and then it's really hard to get booked like a crazy person where it's nonstop,
right?
Like on multiple lines for so as sometimes tedious as it gets, man, I'm so so grateful,
right?
I'm so grateful that I've been blessed with this opportunity, and I'm just trying to just do everything by the book.
Yeah, it's nice, like, because I just look back at COVID when we couldn't do anything, and now like we're both of us are we're booked through most of next year, really.
I was.
You know what I mean? We're pretty. You look at that, you're like, that's a pretty good feeling. You're like, wow, that's great.
And I remember when COVID had hit, the main thing was I had just started in 2018. I did a few, then they asked me back a couple months later, and I did a few, and then I had my agent was having trouble, or no, it wasn't my agent, it was the boss, the Tom, the operations manager.
Yeah.
They didn't send in the reports, and so nobody knew how well I did. Finally, they sent in the reports, and then my agent got me booked, and I came out swinging, and this was now in the end of December of 19. So from 19 through March of 2020,
months. Yeah.
I was gangbusters, and I was literally on the ship when COVID hit and got sent home. And I thought, and that time I was like, okay, well, I can use a month break. This will be great.
Yeah, right.
Ended up being 17 months, and the second it came back, I've been literally nonstop since then.
Yeah.
But I literally at this point said, I finally earned this. This is great, and now it's over. And living alone with no pets, no plants, what saved me was an Australian magician, good friend of mine, went back to Australia, and he had this little dog that they couldn't bring back for 6 months for quarantine.
Yeah.
And he's like, would you watch the dog? And I had no desire to do this.
Right.
But I wanted to do it. I did it anyway. And then my best friend, she had her dog, and I said, hey, can I watch them? So I have a little friend. They saved my life. I'll never forget. I was 8 months in. I was super depressed because I remember looking at a list of essential workers, and it said, nurse, doctor. I was like, cruise ship magician, comic,
Yeah, way at the bottom.
The cruise ship is the
the
worst
whole
word.
Cruise ship. Yeah, there was
a stigma around that. So on the bottom, and I remember I was 8 months in, and it was just so depressed or whatever, and I was sleeping, and both the dogs that were there with me, and I was laying on my shoulder, and they were both, about 8:30 in the morning, they were leaning cheek to cheek on my shoulder, smiling, peeking over my shoulder, like, come on, get up. And they were basically saying, hey, you got air in your lungs, the sun's shining, the birds are flying. What's cope like? They don't know. Let's play. Let's have a good time. We're alive.
The dogs are all about the moment. It's like,
they reminded me that I'm alive, and that we're just happy to be alive. And so I took them out, and we went to the park and threw the ball around, and that's,
Dude, that's a great story. That's really awesome.
Yeah, and that kind of saved.
They kind of saved your life. Yeah. No, that's my daughters probably saved me. They lived with me during COVID. That's how I got through it. But I don't know if I could have done that alone. Because but the dog story, dude. This is because, at first I was the same way. I thought it was gonna be a month. You know what I mean? And the more it dragged out, and then the cruise ship thing. It was funny because I always tell this, like, just before it hit, I was telling people, I go, my job is bulletproof, man. I go, it's bulletproof. I go, they're building ships left and right. I go, I'm working all the time. I go, people are always going to cruise. It's never going to end. And then COVID hit, and I was like, oh my God, it's not bulletproof. It all went. And then with the cruise ship thing getting such a stigma, I'm like, I don't know if that's ever going to come back to what it used to be. It was really then I'm like, now what do I do? Because now I've got nothing. I'm just totally lost. It was a really weird time to go through. And so, all that shit set in, But then when it came back, though, again, I'm like you. It was like gangbusters. Suddenly you're working like crazy.
Yeah, and I didn't know what to do, and then I was able, because of this and because of the blessings, I was able to buy a house, and a lot of things are changing now, and it's wonderful. But that last month of COVID, I ran out of money, and I was driving Uber for a month. The last month, and then a new line called, and I said I'd be happy to do it and take it on. And I remember that was also a blessing because I had quit smoking years ago, like almost 10 years prior, but I had been addicted to this is an interesting story. I'd been addicted to the nicotine gum.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was addicted to nicotine gum, and I knew that even though the doctor said, hey, it's as long as you're not putting smoke in your lungs, you can't be putting things in your body it's got to be wrong. There's got to be something wrong with it.
Right.
And I had prayed, and I just said, man, I don't want to do this no more. Take me off it. And I get on this first ship after COVID, and they said, you can't get off the ship for the first 2 weeks. I said, it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have another time to get off. So a week goes by, week and a half, and I run out of the gum.
Ah.
So me and one of the other comics were sending the passengers to the store, and I said, hey, I'll give you cash. Can you get me some nicotine gum?
Yeah.
She said, sure. And she comes back and she said, I got you something. They didn't have the gum, but I think it will help. And I was like, oh, okay, good. Maybe she got me the lozenge, the patch, something.
Right.
It was regular Dentyne.
No way, really?
So it helped nothing. I was seeing the plant people, the shadow people. I went through the worst withdrawals, and you know what? Been off of it.
Then you were off?
Since.
Oh, right on.
I was forced off of it.
That's a little cold turkey or whatever.
And cold turkey, and I was like 4 days into it was when we got off the ship, and I got in the car and I found some nicotine in the thing, and I just flushed it down the toilet.
Oh, good for you, brother.
I don't even think about it anymore.
Dude, that's hilarious. That's good, man. Good, man. You stayed. That's it gives you Dentyne. That's the best.
Yeah.
On what planet do you think this is going to help me?
Yeah. But the magic. What I was going to say was the magic has fallen into a blessing because there's nobody, but most people love magic, and that's one thing that I've found that I enjoy is like engineers, lawyers, doctors, brain surgeons. It fools them all. Living in LA, I had a lot of opportunities to perform for celebrities. I once was doing a close-up magic at a party, and there was a producer, and she said, "Can you go in the back room and do magic for some VIPs?" I was like, "Sure, whatever." And I walked back there, and on the couch was David Spade, Steve Martin, and Adam Sandler.
Oh.
And they were just, do more magic. And they're just chatting with me, and they wanted to pick my brain. They were enthralled by me.
Didn't Steve do magic early on?
He did.
Yeah.
And we talked about that too. I said, "Didn't you do this?" And and he said, "Well, not at that level." And I was like, "No, but you did that." But he did more simple stuff. But he was talking about, he was more of a I am a comic magician, but he was doing at that night I was doing sleight of hand stuff, and
right.
he was we talked about it, and it was just, he really appreciated what I did. But Adam Sandler kept going, "Come here, would you?" He's like, "Do you mind doing that card trick again?" And one of the other things change from my mother and for my children. And my mother.
That's great, dude.
And he goes, "Mom, come here, you got to see this."
Yeah.
"I'm sorry to bother you. Do you mind?" I'm like, "No, Adam Sandler, we're good. I don't mind. It's cool. I'll do it again.
Cool.
We're fine." Stuff like that. So so it's brought me a lot of.
Dude, that's impressive, dude. I worked on Joe Dirt. That was the first SAG gig I did.
Nice.
And they invited me to the rap party, which was cool. I only did a day. I didn't think they would do that, but I met Dave and Adam at the rap party. Amazing. And Adam is the nicest guy. He's so loyal to his people too. You know, he's just a really sweet and a good family man. He's
one of the nicest people in Hollywood.
So for him to show magic to his family, that's a big deal to him. You know, what I mean, he's
one of the nicest people in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Everybody. Steve was great. David was great. Another one that surprised me is I was doing a show one time. I would have these agents that would say, "Hey, can you come and you have a celebrity party tomorrow?" And you'd show up, and it'd be like a woman that had been on 90210 as a reoccurring 20 years ago. And it's like, well, okay, I mean, I know I watched the show, but that's not. I wouldn't go in public.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
And then there was like, the Top Chef or something. So sometimes I say, "Can you do a celebrity party?" And you show up, and it's like. Somebody that's semi-famous, but one time she called and it was Jack Black.
Yeah.
And I go in and it's weird because I'm at his house, and same thing with Robin Thicke, but Jack Black, I was doing the show, and afterward he's like, starts chatting me up for literally like 10 minutes, leading the conversation, asking me questions. But what was crazy about it is because we were in his home, in his private home, he was being so normal, it was bizarre. Like I remember his kids had ran up and he goes, "No, you may not have your dinner till after you have your dessert. No, you need to ask your mother."
He's a regular being. Yeah.
He's like, "No, ask your mother. You have your dinner first, then your dessert." And I was like, "Whoa." It's cool. So magic breaks barriers. Like I've traveled to Middle East and I'm not Middle East. Sorry, like
you're a witch
Asia.
in the Middle East.
In Asia, yep.
Yeah, they would kill you.
And not in Middle East,
or
but
stone you.
In Asia, I remember one time I was in Thailand, and in order to get a toilet paper to go to the toilet, you have to buy it. So you hand the woman a coin, and she stands there and hands you toilet paper. This poor woman was sitting there all day, just hand her a coin, hand you toilet paper. You go to the bathroom, hand her a coin. She's just like this. And I said, I'm going to make her day. So I came up and I just and then made the coin appear randomly. And she went, threw the toilet paper at me. I'm like, it's a trick. I'm joking around. It's a trick. It's not real. I thought I'm going to make her smile, and
you scared the death out of her.
Oh, yeah. She's like, I'm like, threw the toilet paper at me. I'm like, no, it's a trick. Never mind, you don't understand what
Well, it definitely breaks barriers, especially if you're good at it. The sleight of hand stuff.
Yeah.
Because and also you got to be really good at it, because if you do it once, people want to see more. And if you're still, the tricks are still working, that's good. You might be able to trick somebody once, but if you can do a bunch of tricks and people are like, I can't believe, it's impressive to watch. That's why the up close magic always blew me away.
Right.
Do you do on your stage show, like I didn't catch, do you have a camera on stage to show like card or something sleight of hand?
No, I don't do that there because I've built my act around strong on the comedy because of my acting background.
Yeah.
And because I started late in life, I'm very good at some sophisticated sleight of hand close up, but many guys are incredible.
Right.
So I have taken my strength, which is all my acting background and my comedy,
right,
and I rely heavy on that to build the act around it. And then as I can do those sleight of hand things, it just wouldn't. I can't present myself as Mr. Suave.
Right.
It just doesn't work. However, some of the things that I'm doing in the show, there are some moves in there that are so difficult that other magicians will be like, nice, I caught that. Or they'll understand what I'm doing. Yeah. But I have, sometimes I will, on certain ships, I'll do a 20-minute close-up show, like in the comedy club or in the main atrium room or whatever, and then they'll put it there, and then I'll teach magic afterward, and stuff like that. Teach basic magic, simple magic at home. Anybody can do tricks, kind of thing.
Well, that's why you're so unique. Like I obviously talked to a bunch of other magicians. We mentioned a couple of them the other day, but you almost did reverse. Like a lot of guys start magic when they're kids, and then they grow up doing magic, and they add comedy and performance to it.
And
you were already,
right.
You already had the background of the performing, and then started so it's almost like a reverse. That's why the show's so strong.
Well, what helps me too is being in LA, because I knew it was going to be heavy that way. I live at the clubs, like Flappers in Burbank is my home club. I've worked at the Store and the Ice House and the Improv and stuff, and so I go in there. And I will talk to other comics and say, help me punch this up. I want to be more original. Same thing with on the ships.
I'll
have the comics come and watch my show and give me some bits.
And not just so hacky, because a lot of magicians do the same hacky, you know what I mean? Just hack. There's hacking every
Try to punch things up, or I'll come up with bits and say, I've got this, but I just need to tweak it just a little bit.
Right.
And our mutual friend Flip Schultz gave me a line one time, and I thought, I don't think I really like that. And he said, I don't know what boiling water is. Boiling water is like 212 degrees or something.
I don't know.
I'm probably wrong, but let's say it's 212. He said, that joke right now is at 211. He said, do this one line, and you're going to take it up that 1 degree to boiling water. And I went, I don't know about that. He goes, just trust me on this. And so I did it, and it brought the house down.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, I keep doing it. And it keeps bringing the house down, so it ain't coming out now.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay,
Dude,
one little tweaky line. He said, you got the right premise. You got that joke, but you need to tag it with that, and it will just crank it up to that boiling. And so in creating my show and creating my comedy, there's two rules I stick to. The magic, I want no possible explanation whatsoever of how I do it. I don't want anyone to go, well, I saw him doing something, but I want him to go, there's no way that can be done. And with the comedy, I want no possible way to offend anybody, especially in this day and age. And it's a very tough line.
Right.
I've heard of comics and magician comics getting fired for just saying things that, I mean, today is really difficult to do this stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to walk a line. But on the other hand, I don't want to take the integrity away from the act.
Right.
So I want to still be funny without like being,
Right, without offending. Like I try not to divide the room, but I try to walk up to the line as close as I possibly can.
Of course.
But the line's moving and it's getting harder. And there's a lot of stuff I've taken. I've been doing that comedy 30-something years. There's a lot of stuff I've dropped. Where I sat down about after, I want to say, it was just before COVID. I sat down and looked at my act. I go, I'm going to go over all my stuff and think about what I can change, how I can maybe tweak it and save it or drop it. And there was a bunch of stuff I don't do anymore where I'm like, this wouldn't be. Some premises you can hear crowds gasp as you start the premise. You know what I mean? You're just a weird feeling. So it's you got to walk that tightrope. You got to be real careful.
Oh, I did college shows years ago, and some of the stuff that I said, I cringe just thinking about it now. But even as recently on a ship recent, I had a very enthusiastic volunteer that I thought was perfect, but I wasn't sure what gender they were, and I didn't know how to address it.
Right.
And it was I was like, oh no.
Right.
What do I do? And so I just was like, hi, how would you like me to address you? And then they said what they wanted me to address, and I did that. It worked, but it scared it was like, it's so tough.
Yeah,
now.
I get that from, because I go into the crowd a lot, and I'll refer to, and sometimes I won't refer to someone because I'm not sure.
Yeah, happens a lot.
Yeah, and you're like, I don't want to screw this up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's tough nowadays. Yeah.
It is tough. And, you're just trying to be, even just being aware, and it's tough enough for us in a dark theater or a dark room. Sometimes they're 5 rows back, and you hear something, and you adjust, and you say something, and then it comes out the wrong way or whatever. And what are you going to do? I mean, but now you think about, so now you don't do it. You know what I mean? It's taken, you just go, I'm not going to refer to anybody deeper into the audience or whatever. You've adjusted your live show so much that and some of it makes complete sense. I mean, the world's changing, but a lot of it is overkill. A lot of it is too much, where people are too sensitive. And
I agree 100%.
Right.
100% with that statement. I completely agree. And when I, nowadays, like I try to have fun with the show. And like, I think on the show the other night, was it this week or last? I don't remember. There was a woman on stage that was the entire time trying to grab at my things and just had too much to drink. And that's the hard part about bringing things up on stage. And you can't go and say, hey, don't touch my stuff, or get out of there, or come stand over here, or you can't touch it. You have to be very careful. And then, like you had the other night, you get someone talking and being obnoxious, and you have to like put them in their place, but without being a jerk.
Right. It's a delicate.
Yeah. You did it very well. You're like, you basically slammed that guy, and then went, everyone give him a round of applause.
Yeah.
We're good, we're cool. And
it
was perfect. And I try to be like that too.
Yeah, it's true. Like I kind of established a persona on stage where I can be a little bit more pushy and get away with it.
Yeah.
I do that early in the show.
Yeah.
And then you know what, because we talked about this before now, I don't know how much of this you're getting. In fact, this is a good question for you, because Quincy and I were talking about, I talk about it with comics all the time. People are more apt to talk up and speak during a live performance. Mm-hmm. Like, not so much heckle, but they just yell shit out or yell stuff out or say stuff. And you have to, as a comic, you got to be mentally prepared to adjust or aware of it. I mean, how much of that are you seeing as a magician?
Constant, especially when they're on stage.
Yeah.
And the problem is, I'm speaking, and then they're speaking, but the theater is large, and I'm the only one mic'd.
Right.
So they'll interrupt me, and then I have to repeat what
they said
say
back to the room,
back to the room, and then they keep talking, and then I have a couple instant shutdown lines or whatever.
Yeah, right.
But it's tough. I had one that was really bad the other night. I was like, will you just be quiet and stand up? And then finally I just had enough, and I was like, stand there, and I go, don't move. And then the other one was, there was a lighting cube where the woman needs to move to this part of the stage to use what we call misdirection, because the light follows her there.
Right.
And if light comes off of me.
Yeah, right.
So I was going, and finally I was going, oh, go stand. I said, let's have a stand right in the center of the stage so I just can see you. And I went, stand there. Go stand there. I go, you, because you can't physically. I'm like,
you can't move them.
Right there. There. Go, you. Ma'am, right there. Go stand there, right there.
Right.
I go, and when she finally stood there, the whole audience was like, "Jeez, they're like clapping,
oh man."
I'm like, stand over there. Nobody can see you. Yeah.
Well, when you're pulling volunteers out of the crowd too, and almost every magician says the same thing. You ask for volunteers. Usually, the people that are overly excited aren't the ones that you pull up on stage. You kind of find a middle ground.
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends because in corporate, private performances and whatnot, those are usually not the ones you want to do. On a ship, it's different. Everyone's on vacation. They want to have fun.
Right.
And so I started writing my routines around that, where you want the more hammy, outgoing people.
Oh, right on.
It
Yeah.
rarely backfires. Sometimes it does. But
Yeah.
I will specifically say in a couple of routines, I need the guy who gets all the attention.
Okay.
Or I need this in specific, because if they don't volunteer, the routine is not as good, because some of them I've written that revolve around them.
Them, right.
Yeah.
They got to be outgoing.
If they're shy, I'm dead.
So you need like a Carol. Who's our
No, Carol, that lady was talking to you the whole time. I
Yeah.
need someone that gets up there and they do exactly what you want, and they react here when the magic happens.
Right.
And then they'll, oh my God, like that kind of thing. And they'll follow instructions. You have to basically, I'm scanning the entire 1,000 theater, and
Sure.
I'm going, okay, not too drunk, he's having fun, he's paying attention. Okay, he's trying to bust me. This is all going through my head.
Right.
Don't want him.
Yeah, you don't want the bus guy, right?
Right.
No.
Right. And they usually don't volunteer because they're trying to be.
They're too cool.
Yeah, and you can see them leaning over trying to explain what they think is the.
I know what he's doing. Yeah, right. That guy.
And it's like, yeah, you don't know. There's no way you know. Yeah. And then, so I'll find a middle ground. I can usually say, kids are a problem. They'll want to volunteer, and then they freeze up. So I won't use children. So I'll just say, oh, I need a volunteer. Oh, I need somebody over 15 or whatever,
Right.
And immediately go to like an adult. The older, the better. Adult people are a blast.
Yeah,
right.
right.
A blast,
Yeah. Dude, yeah, it was great. I can't wait to see the show in 2 days. And I love
you.
the fact the most interesting thing about you is the reverse thing. You know what I mean? I meet a ton of magicians that are always trying to be funny and that's the hardest thing for them.
Right.
They're always struggling they're not comfortable either.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you can tell. Sometimes you can tell, sometimes you can't.
And they'll try to say they're a comedian or whatever, but they have no background in that.
Right.
So I studied with Judy Carter.
Yeah, of course.
I took all her stuff. I've been I started as an actor. I've been doing it for years since I started that. And I would love to be Mr. Sophisticated, Shen Lim and all that. Frankly, I don't have that kind of skill.
Right.
And also, it's not practical, and you have a look and a marketing thing.
Yeah.
And so I've built it on that, and I try to be. I want when people walk out of my show, they'll a lot of the time say, "Oh my God, it was hilarious." They don't say much about the magic, but they will say, "How did you do this? How did you specifically do that?"
Yeah, it's a great show.
Yeah, and it's fun, and also the thing I like that shocks people is my demeanor off stage is not anything like it is on stage.
Yeah.
Entertainers that are on all the time drive me crazy.
I can't. There's a couple where we used to take shuttles to and from the airports, to get on. Yeah. They'll get on. The comics are here, and I'm like, please don't.
Shut up. Yeah,
don't do that.
Please, no, we're good.
Yeah, I was like, one of the things I always love is the first few days on the ship, because then nobody knows kind of who you are. You know what I mean? You can go anywhere, do anything, you relax. And that's it. I mean, I don't want to complain because we're fortunate. People come up, it's fortunate. Nice when they go. It's a great show, but it's kind of nice too to be not noticed.
It's amazing. And you know what's interesting is when I started in the business as an actor, just like everybody else, I wanted to be James Dean.
Right.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I lived in LA and started having some success as an actor and commercials and whatnot. And I remember, I'll never forget this. I was out to eat at California Pizza Kitchen on Ventura Boulevard, Studio City, and right behind me was Justin Timberlake.
Yeah.
And everybody's watching. Everybody was watching every single thing he did. And then he walked down the street. Everybody's watching, following. He can't go anywhere without being recognized. But the nice thing about ships is you get that celebrity feeling for for 2 or 3 days, and it's not overwhelming. And not everyone comes to see the shows, so people stop you, congratulate you, give you that little high five. That your work's paid off kind of feeling, and then you have and then you can literally leave a gig or step off a ship and go to the bank, the dentist, and nobody knows who you are. Exactly.
Dude, it's a lot of pressure. I used to, like you were talking about doing shows for celebrities and stuff. I used to work at a place called, you may know Baby Blues Barbecue. And I worked there for years, and I worked in their catering and their delivering. I was a manager and all this stuff. But we dealt with a lot of celebrities. I delivered to Dustin Hoffman, like I had a conversation with him in his house. Yeah. We brought that up, and Jonah Hill and all these other guys. But Snoop Dogg used to come in to eat. And we had a private room in the Hollywood place, and they would come in through the kitchen. And that way they can come in the back door, get some food, and leave. And one day he was there, and he went to go to the bathroom. And instead of going right into the kitchen, he went left into the dining room. And it was chaos. It was just, and then, but you watched, because you could talk to him, and he was fine. But now when he's in front of all the people, he's Snoop. He's got to be stopped. He says hello. He's being gracious. But then you're like, you think you're like, man, if I lived that life and I couldn't walk into a crowded room, and then because it's another 45 minutes of him standing around, and he wants to be gracious, and he's good. He's a great guy to the people and stuff. Yeah. But you think if you're just going out to eat, how much of a hassle that would be to just not be able to go get a sandwich somewhere. And
that was the conversation that I had with Adam Sandler. He kept asking me to do all these tricks for him, and I finally said to him, I just stopped and I said to him just like this. I said, here's what's strange. I know you very well. Up until 10 minutes ago, you have no idea who I am.
Yeah.
But everybody knows you, and you don't know anybody. So it's got to be weird when you go out and face the public.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm really glad that you brought that up and you know that. And he goes, yeah, that's part of what you sign up for and you kind of get used to, but it is difficult. You got to make sure that you look a certain way when you leave the house, et cetera, et cetera. It's difficult. And this was on Halloween night, and his kids probably a few minutes later came up and said, Dad, come on, let's go trick-or-treating. He looked right at me and he goes, time to face the public.
Yeah. Right, yeah, but it's got to be, if you're that big, it's in every time you leave the house. It's part of your job. It's part of
people wonder why Michael Jackson was a little strange and stuff like that. He's the biggest icon of all time, and Elvis was holed up, and they're the greatest entertainers of all time. They can't go anywhere.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, it's got to be, I don't know, I can only imagine that type of pressure.
Everyone's giving Britney Spears heck right now. Like, who knows what she's going through?
You don't know. Nobody understands that. Well, no one knows what anybody's going through.
Right.
But then if you're living under a microscope, you know what I mean? Every little thing you do, every mistake, is amplified, And then sometimes, and misunderstood. In this day and age with social media, you can take a 15-second clip of a celebrity somewhere, and you're like, why would they do that? And you don't see the whole context. You don't know why something happened or whatever.
You don't.
Yeah.
You don't, and it's taken the wrong way. And I will say that one of why I'm grateful for this work is, when I'll tell you this story real quick. When I was doing The Cable Guy, I had lines were cut, and in the final cut of the movie, all you see me do is dress Jim Carrey in his battle gear in the medieval time scene and throw him the battle axe.
Yeah.
And whatnot. But we filmed over 4 days in Anaheim, 17-hour days. So I would take my cast chair, sit it next to his, and just sit there.
Mm-hmm.
So that when he'd talk, he'd just talk to the person next to him. We're chatting. And so we had a nice, good conversation, over a bunch of conversations. And on the last day, I was leaving, and I went up to Ben Stiller, who directed, and I said, hey, man, thanks, because he was in the callbacks. I said, thanks for casting me. He goes, hey, man, you're really funny, blah, blah. It's good, and sorry I yelled at you, because he did yell at me. That's a story for another time. And then I said to Matthew Broderick, hey, it's a pleasure to work with you. And he goes, hey, it was a pleasure to work with you. And he was very nice, but it wasn't genuine.
Right.
And then I said to Jim, I said, hey, man, it was an honor to work with you. And he turned to me, put hand like this, hand on top, and he goes, it was a pleasure to work with you. And he goes, remember what I told you? He goes, when you do this, or he didn't say whatever, but I told you. He goes, remember this. You are successful when you're doing what you love, and you, my friend, are a success. And he said, nobody knew who I was for years.
Yeah.
And he goes, and I was successful. And he goes, you're right on the right path. Because at that time, my lines hadn't been cut. Cable Guy was going to be a huge movie. He said, as long as you're doing this, you're successful. So fast forward to 2 years. We had talked a lot. Fast forward 2 years later, I grew up in music. I didn't go to college for very long, but my father was a music professor, and I was a music major and whatnot. So I was playing trombone in Man on the Moon in the the Rockette scene.
Oh, right on.
And
all right.
So in the Cable Guy, I had a wig on for Medieval Times where my hair was like this.
Right.
And then not in Man on the Moon, I was just like this. So Jim Carrey was staying in the Andy Kaufman character while we're filming, and he's walking by, and he looks right at me, and he goes, "Hey, man, how are you?" And he goes, "Yeah, man, you. How are you, brother? I didn't know." He goes, "Your hair, it's just..." And I go, "You remember me?" And he goes, "Yeah, you look different." And I go, "Oh, that was a wig." And he goes, "I didn't know you played the trombone." And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "My father, he played the clarinet." Now I remember that Jim's father, I read that somewhere, played the clarinet. And I go, "Yeah, I read that somewhere." And he goes, "Anyway, it's real good to see you." And he walks by, and I was like, "Holy,
that's pretty cool."
Jim Carrey remembers me. Like,
yeah.
He meets everybody. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, can you imagine? That's amazing,
That was
dude.
incredible. It blew my mind 3 years later.
Yeah.
That we had the conversations, and he was telling me some crazy stories. He was like telling me at the time he was dating Lauren Holly.
Right.
And this was before cell phones, and he said like the only way they could communicate was his days were so long that he would write her a Post-it, put it on the bathroom mirror.
Yeah.
And then go to bed, and then she'd get home from work, and then wake up in the morning, and there was an answer with another Post-it. That's how they communicate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So, anyway, interesting story.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we close on that then. All right.
Fantastic.
Dude, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Thanks for dealing with the camera issue.
No worries. My pleasure. I had a blast, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was perfect. Give me your socials, plug your website, whatever you want to throw out there. Go ahead.
Instagram, Snapchat, X, formerly known as Twitter, is Rasner Magic. No, Twitter is at Rob Rasner. Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and all that is at Rasner Magic. That is RAS, and it's Nancy ER, Magic.
Perfect, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
December 19th to the 23rd, I will be on the Celebrity Equinox at sea. And then 5 days after that, the 24th to the 29th, also on the Celebrity Equinox. December 31st, that's New Year's Eve through January 2nd, you can see me on the Carnival Horizon cruise ship. Out of Miami, I'll be in the middle of the water telling jokes to drunk people. January 7th through the 9th, I will be on the Carnival Panorama. That's out of Long Beach, California. January 11th through the 14th, back to Dallas. That's TK's place. You can see me. I got 4 nights. That's 6 shows. Come check it out. January 11th through the 14th. Total Schmidt Show streams every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. on YouTube. That's where you can see it. The Lenny Schmidt Comedy Network. Go there, watch the episode, like the episode, subscribe. After that, you can catch Total Schmidt Show on all podcast platforms.